But y'all, it's finally time. We're gonna talk about how I went from
I don't want to do theater productions anymore because this musical's really just ruined me.
to,
I am in school to study theater, to study acting.
and that's because of a little show called Ride the Cyclone, baby. Oh yes, bitches. It is time for me to talk about my favorite and the best musical ever. I am so excited. For those unaware, Ride the Cyclone is about 7 teenagers from Uranium City, Saskatchewan that die in a horrific, tragic roller coaster accident, and they all have to pitch their case to be brought back to life by the fortune-telling machine named Karnak. Now, this might sound like sad and morbid, and like it can be, but the show is actually like super lovely, full of love and light and amazing show-stopping performances, and if you ever get the chance to watch the show, I highly recommend you do. Though I doubt your versions can be as good as the ones that I have seen with the core cast members, who just recorded the cast album, by the way. It's coming out tomorrow, May 7th. If you're watching this the day that it comes out, then get so fucking excited, y'all, because I know that I am. But let's rewind it back a little bit. I first watched the show on April 27th, 2018. And before I could get into how much I love the show, how much it means to me, how it changed my life, blah, 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 I need to set the scene. Thankfully, I've been doing these YouTube video things for like 5-ish years, so if you really want to, you can go back and watch my like update videos and sort of vlog videos from this time in my life to see like my first-hand accounts of like how awful and just stressful and horrible my life was at the time. Full warning, if you don't want to hear me so casually speak about wanting to murder a bunch of teenagers, don't watch those videos then. But basically at that time, the first time I'd seen the show, I was a week out from the opening night of my high school's production of The Wiz. And, oh, was it so bad and so stressful. Like, nobody knew their lines, a third of the songs were not choreographed, nobody knew what they were doing, and I was just truly at my wit's end with every single person there. Like, I would come home from rehearsals every day just like fuming, like seething in anger and just being so upset and drained from having to go to rehearsals every day. And at this point in April, we had been like 2 months into rehearsals, so I had been like 70 plus days into just all of this bullshit, and I was just so done with it. And I, at this point, was like truly trying to consider whether I wanted to make theater like a career, if I wanted to go do theater at university, all of that. But like this show truly like killed all of that for me. I was like, if all of my productions and all of my school theater work is going to be like this, I never want to do theater ever. So I was really just like questioning my entire future, because I was like, oh, I thought maybe I was going to go into acting, but actually, apparently I'm not going to. But then I saw this show. You see, there's this big local theater in my area, and that sounds like an oxymoron, but like, stay with me. And every Friday they would put on like workshops for the local like theater students in the area, so that we would be able to go in, like learn a bit about acting, go watch the show, and then have a talk back with the cast afterwards. And since I was considering like a future and a career in theater, I went to every single one of these that I could. Like, I even missed rehearsals for this show to like go to these workshops, which like some people may say is bad because you gotta go to all the rehearsals, team spirit, blah, 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 blah. But like, in my mind, you want all your actors to like be the best that they can, and workshops are the way to do that, you know, expand your skills, work with different people, but like, whatever, it's in the past now. And I had seen a couple shows through this program already. I think I saw Kiss Me Kate and Mamma Mia, and while those were like good shows, like all of the performers were amazing, like the choreography, the set design, the singing, all of that was like really good. None of the shows really like got my attention. Like, I did not care about what happened in the show themselves. And it didn't help that like I was coming from a full day of school, and at that point like a week's worth of rehearsals, so I was like so tired, and more than once fell asleep during intermission because I was just like exhausted. But at this point in my life, I was more so just trying to find a valid reason to get out of rehearsals because I did not want to be there. But then this Friday we get to the workshop, and the magnificent Lillian Castillo is there, and like, let me just go on a tangent about how much I love Lillian. She is, first of all, just amazing, so talented, so wonderful. I don't really know her, but every time we see each other, she calls me her student, so if I could be so bold, I consider her my mentor, and she's just kind of amazing. I think I've seen her perform like over 50 times in different shows because she's just so amazing. But like, Anyways, I get to the workshop, Lillian is there, and she teaches us the opening song and dance of the musical. And this alone changed my life because, as you can imagine, I don't come into these workshops with the best vibe. I am already just like fuming because of the rehearsals, and all of the workshops that we'd done before were just sort of talking about like acting concepts, and we would just sort of be in a big group, and then like 2 or 3 people would go up and do like a demonstration for the class, and then like we would all just like sit and clap, and it wasn't really like fully collaborative. But this was the first time that we all got to, you know, like stand up and work and do the whole acting thing that we all love to do. And oh my god, y'all, was it so fun? Because one, if you watch my videos talking about the rehearsals, my 2 big issues was that nobody could get down the choreo like to save their lives, and nobody was ever paying attention, and that just like did not happen. Everybody got it, and everybody was like actively paying attention and like wanting to learn and wanting to just perform, even though we all knew that like nobody was going to see this except for ourselves. We were literally just learning it to have fun, but everybody still did great, and it was so much fun, and it was the first time I had fun doing theater in like months. I posted about it on my Insta story right after we had finished the workshop, that like I really needed that reminder that theater can actually be, you know, fun and collaborative. But 2, it's also a really fucking fun song. You can look it up on YouTube. It's called Waiting for the Drop. This number was cut from the musical, so there's a different opening number now, which makes me a little bit sad because the song obviously has such a special place in my heart. But I'm not that upset about it because the new opening number now is also very good, and now Waiting for the Drop can stay very special to me. I mean, like, how many people can say that they learned the song and dance to Waiting for the Drop? How many people can say that they still have the sheet music that they gave us for this number? I bet it's only me. But anyways, we do the workshop, we learn the song, I feel the production of serotonin in my brain for the first time all year. I have a great time. And then afterwards, I go up to Lillian, and I wonder if she remembers this. I hope she doesn't remember this. Oh my god. But I basically just like gush about how much I loved this workshop, how awful my rehearsals were going, and I just sort of like thank her for reminding me that like theater is fun and great and wonderful. Then she says something really sweet about how, yeah, theater's fun, and she's glad that I had a good time, and it's just like her usual great self. Something she definitely doesn't remember saying though is something she just sort of said offhand, was that you don't know if you're truly hydrated until you have to use the bathroom too much. And I have thought about that ever since she told us, and every time I'm trying to stay hydrated, I think of her and what she said. So thank you, Lillian Costello, for keeping me hydrated. But we finished the workshop, and then we head over to the theater to watch the show, and this is already very different and very exciting. First of all, we're heading into a completely different theater than we had seen the other shows in. And this one is like a smaller black box theater, so it's a lot like closer, a lot more intimate. And we were sitting in like the front fucking row, which was already wild because usually when they give us the tickets, they put us like way in the back in the balcony because they're giving us these tickets for free and they don't want to waste good seats on all these kids who aren't paying for anything, blah, 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 blah. So like the fact that we were front row, like literally right next to the stage, was insane. If you watch videos from this production, I'm sitting like truly just to the right, like stage left of them, like the stage like curves around and I'm just like right on the other side of the stage. It was wild. I think this was the first time I had ever been front row for any sort of seated show, so like I was truly losing my mind. And also, I don't know if it's because it was just a smaller theater, so there were less people, but I swear the room was like cold. And like the vibe before the show was supposed to be like a little bit creepy, a little bit spooky. So the fact that like the room was chilly really just like set the vibe perfectly. It really brought my excitement from like a 10 to a 15. Like I don't know if they had any control over that, but it really added to my experience. And then we watched the show, and I'm not going to spoil it for you because I highly recommend that you go watch it. When I say that this is the best musical ever, I am not joking. I've seen many musicals before and after Ride the Cyclone, and truly nothing has been able to compare. I saw it like 17 or 18 times in this production, and then I flew across the country to watch it 4 more times. So when I say that the show is worth seeing live, I truly mean that. At the very least, go listen to the soundtrack that comes out May 7th, because the experience of watching the show just cannot be conveyed in words. But what I can explain is a little bit of the history behind this wonderfully odd Canadian musical, because ever since I watched the show, I have dedicated my life to learning everything there is about it and telling everybody I know about it so that they can watch it and love it as much as I do. So when I say I know too much about this show, I mean I know too much about this show. Like going through every page of their Google search history too much. Like emailing Canadian radio stations to see if they have any copies of the interview they did with the cast 11 years ago. Too much. Spoiler alert, they don't. Like emailing the production companies of Ride the Cyclone to see if/when they would ever come out with a cast album. Too much. So I want to make it very clear that I have put in the work to preserve and learn every piece of Ride the Cyclone information that I can, and I am finally ready to share my never-ending knowledge with everybody. And if you have any receipts or corrections to make, please let me know. All my socials are in the description. So the story sort of starts in Victoria, Canada in 2008 when Jacob Richmond and Brooke Maxwell, both working together at Atomic Vaudeville, a production theater company in Victoria, started workshopping this musical called Ride the Cyclone in the basement of the Ukrainian Catholic Church of St. Nicholas. Ride the Cyclone, fun fact, is part of a trilogy. Ride the Cyclone is actually the sequel to Jacob Richmond's 2009 play called Legoland that I also highly recommend that you read because, you know, it's a prequel to Ride the Cyclone. It gives you a lot of fun, spicy background knowledge. But Jacob has specifically talked about how he's planned like a third show in this trilogy, and it's about like old ladies on like a cruise ship. But that's like all the news that I can find on it. He's just sort of mentioned this concept, and I haven't seen anything about like development or anything, but like, if it ever happens, I will be there and I'll let you all know. Regardless, information about this show at this point in the timeline is a bit hard to parse out because I'm guessing the show is pretty much in really like rough stages, so it went through a lot of changes. From what I can tell, there used to be 8 members. Possibly 9. There are pictures that suggest there are at least 2 characters that got cut, and this is further supported by interviews in which they talk about some characters being amalgamations of previous characters that they just sort of put together to make one character in the show now. But the show was also apparently over 2 hours long and cut because it was just too long, and like the pacing couldn't keep up. But like, I for one would love to see the 2-hour version of Ride the Cyclone. Maybe it's just because I'm dying to get more Ride the Cyclone content, but Jacob Richmond, Brooke Maxwell, anybody, if you all have the 2-hour version, like, let me know. Maybe put on like a 2-hour version for charity, or just send me the PDF, whatever it takes to get me to be able to see this version. The cast has also changed a lot, obviously, from their start in 2008, but the one cast member who has truly stayed from the very beginning until the cast album now is icon Colby Wardell. Now, again, I know I am very biased, but like, Colby Wardell is just so talented. He plays Noel, and Noel's lament is just such a amazing show-stopping number. It was the first number in the show that truly just like blew me away and like really cemented the show as like different and special from other shows that I've seen in the past, and truly nothing I've ever seen in theater has been able to match this number. And his voice is just so strong, and he's just so talented. If you see the version that he did back in New York, in the recorded version that they did at the Guggenheim, just hearing how his voice sounds then versus how his voice sounds now, it's just like, he was already so good back then, and the fact that he just keeps getting better is honestly astounding, amazing. I don't know how he does it, but he is truly a sight to see in theater, and if you ever get the honor to see Colby Wardell on stage, you better fucking take it. He's truly just mwah. And he's been doing the show for 13 years, so that's just like, that's something else. The first production of the show was at the Intrepid Theatre in Victoria, Canada in 2009, and they continued taking the show, touring it throughout Canada for about 7 years until they were picked up by the production companies Hot Feet and Alchemation in 2015 to make their US debut at the Chicago Shakespeare Theatre. Now, this marked a big shift in the show's course and production because, for one, the show had a plot now. Canadian Ride the Cyclone was just sort of like a cabaret where all of the kids just sort of sang a song about themselves, and that was it. Like, it was more so like putting them to rest than the big competition that they have now. And while I love the current version so much, oh my god, what I would give to see the original Canadian version of Ride the Cyclone. Like, I was on a cruise with my family in 2009 that went up to Victoria, Canada at like the same time that the show was debuting, and every day I think about how different my life would be if I was able to see the original version in 2009. I know that I would have probably been like scarred for life because I was a child in 2009, but like, it would have been worth it to be able to say, oh yeah, I saw Ride the Cyclone when it first debuted. Anyways, another big shift was the cast. The cast changed a bit throughout the 7 years it was touring and being worked on, but the general Canadian cast was Kelly Hudson playing Constance Blackwood, Sarah Pelzer as Jane Doe, Elliot Loran as Ricky Potts, Riel Brand as Ocean O'Connell Rosenberg, Colby Wardell as Noel Gruber, and while it changed a bit throughout the Canadian run, Matthew Coulson as Misha Baczynski. Almost all of the Canadian cast didn't follow the show to the States. I don't know why, but I thank them for their contribution anyways and wish I could have seen them perform the show. The only remaining cast member was, of course, Colby Wardell. Lillian Castillo came in as Constance Blackwood, Emily Rome as Jane Doe, Tiffany Tatro as Ocean O'Connell Rosenberg, Russell Myrna as Misha Baczynski, and Jackson Evans as Ricky Potts. The roles of Misha and Ricky would change from location to location, but the general cast of Colby, Emily, Tiffany, Lillian, and Carl Hamilton, who plays Karnak, would be the same people from the start in Chicago all the way through their last show in Atlanta and following on to the soundtrack that comes out tomorrow. Carl Hamilton, by the way, is also super fucking sweet. I only met him in Atlanta, and he gave me a signed poster, and I had a wee little sob in the theater when he gave it to me, and he's just like super nice and super cool. I don't think he has any social medias because I've tried to find them, but I hope he knows how much I love him and am thankful for what he brought to the role of Karnak, because Karnak is such an integral part of the show, and truly just not enough respect for Karnak as a character. Fun fact, Karnak used to be a puppet that was operated and voiced by separate people until I believe the Push Festival in 2013, a change that I greatly appreciate. The Push Festival is also where I think they made the change from having a one-man band to a four-piece band, which I think is also a good change. I didn't hear it with the one-man band, but like, if you've heard the score, there's like a lot going on in like the best, most wonderful way, so I cannot imagine one person having to juggle all the sort of instruments and elements of making this score as wonderful as it can, because the score is fucking beautiful, y'all. The Chicago debut is also where we got the influence of the late and great Rachel Rockwell. She choreographed and directed the show and then stayed on as the director through their run in 2018, and her influence is truly immeasurable. I mean, everybody who has worked with her and talked about her has just talked about how the show wouldn't be what it is without her. Like, she took just like this weird cabaret musical from Canada that had no plot and made it this beautifully grand, heart-wrenching musical about life and love and loss. And she just sort of did the impossible, so I will forever be grateful for what she's created and hope that her legacy lives on in the show. The song Be Safe, Be Good was cut between Seattle and Atlanta, which made me so sad because it is my favorite song, but they recorded it and put it on the cast album as a tribute to Rachel, and I just think that's so sweet, and I know I'm going to cry when I hear it. Now, y'all know how much I hate award shows because I think they're stupid and racist and elitist and blah 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 blah. But the fact that Ride the Cyclone never got a Tony nomination or award because they never got to Broadway and only to Off-Broadway just makes me so furious at the Academy. The 2016 Off-Broadway version is great though. Go check out the Guggenheim production of it. It's with the New York cast, so it has Alex Weiss as Ricky Potts and Gus Halper as Misha, and from what little I've seen and what I've heard from my friends who got to see the show in New York, they are amazing. And fucking crazy fun fact that I learned, y'all know Taylor Louderman, who played Regina George in Mean Girls? She was casted in New York as Ocean O'Connell Rosenberg. From what I can tell, she made it to previews before she stepped away from the show, citing creative differences, and I think we all know that that's just code for like, there's some drama going on behind the scenes. Like, I don't know the tea, I'm not gonna claim to know the tea, but I'm just gonna say there's definitely more than meets the eye here, and I'm just gonna leave it at that. But doesn't that just like blow your mind? Like, Ocean and Regina are such similar characters that I can like totally see how the same person could be casted in both roles, but like, hopefully this means that maybe one day we'll get to see Tiffany Tatro play Regina George in Mean Girls the Musical, because I would live for that. Speaking of Tiffany Tatro, she is also lovely and wonderful and sweet. She follows me on TikTok, she likes all of my Ride the Cyclone TikToks, and is just generally a wonderful person. What the World Needs is like a hard song to sing, and I don't think many people like recognize that. Like, it's like a high belt throughout most of the song, and Tiffany kills it every fucking night. And as somebody who's seen it over 20 times, she has never faltered, ever. She has the vocals, she has the fucking stuff to back it up. There's a recorded version of What the World Needs from the Atlanta version on YouTube. Definitely go check it out because Tiffany is just a wonderful performer. And Ocean's just sort of like the worst, although I would argue that she's not really that bad, but we don't have time to get into my opinions and theories about Ride the Cyclone. But it's just really nice to see that, you know, the character and the actor, there's a big separation there. It's not like a Lea Michele moment where you're like, oh, you're a bit too comfortable being a bad person. But Tiffany just is lovely and wonderful. Another fun fact that I learned, Ocean is canonically half Jewish, half Catholic, which is why she talks about having her bat mitzvah and confirmation in the same week. And she also just like loves Karl Marx. Like, there used to be a whole part in the show in the Canadian version where there was like a Karl Marx like head cutout thing. Our girl might be a Marxist, we love to see it. But Ocean also had a completely different song in the Canadian version. It was called Play to Win, and they uploaded like a 30-second clip of it to SoundCloud that has since been deleted, that I may or may not still have possession of, depending on the legality of said possession. But it's very similar in theme to What the World Needs, but it has like more of a gospel sort of sound than like the pop sound of What the World Needs sounds like. Play to Win is basically just about like, it doesn't matter what horrible thing you're doing as long as you win in the end, because it's your soul alone that's keeping score. It's a really good song. I would love to hear the full version one day. After 2016, we get to the 2018 version that I got to see with Connor Russell as Ricky Potts and Adam Stanley as Misha Paczynski. And from what I've heard and from what I've been told, this version is probably the most different from the other American versions that they've done. Like, it had a different opening number, Space Age Bachelor Man was a completely different number, Be Safe, Be Good was a number just written for this version that was afterwards cut. And while I don't dislike the current version by any stretch of the imagination, I really loved the version that I got to see. I'm very biased towards my version. It's the one that I first saw and fell in love with. So while I do like some of the changes that they made for the Atlanta final version, if it stayed the way it was when I first saw it, you would hear no complaints from me. It was very good. But now that I've caught you up to speed about Ride the Cyclone and its over decade-long history, most of which I cannot get into for the sake of time, let's get back to me. I finished watching the show. I'm absolutely buzzing. It is the best show I have ever seen, and I'm the happiest I've been in months, years. Have I ever felt true happiness before Ride the Cyclone? I'm not entirely sure. But we get to talk to the cast and ask them some questions, and because I'm me, I raise my hand and just gush about how much I love the show and how they're all so talented and how it's the best musical ever, because I mean that shit. And I asked them how it was working in an ensemble that was so small, because there's only 7 of them, not including Virgil, the bass playing rat. And I just imagined that if I was working with a cast full of like 30 people and we couldn't get anything right, that the pressure must have been very high when there's only like 7 of you. And I remember Colby saying something about how you always had to be at your A game, because if you do one wrong note, people will notice. And they gave some simple answers and we all moved on. They probably expected to never see me again. Cue evil laughter, because I then proceeded to watch the show 18 times. And as I said, I was about like a week out from opening night, so every time I was in the dressing room getting ready for the show, I queued up What the World Needs and listened to it the entire time I was doing my makeup to like psych me up to do this show. I truly do not believe that if I didn't see Ride the Cyclone and I didn't have the song to really know like get me ready, I would not have put on a good show or a show at all. It is imperative to my pre-show routine, and it's still my #1 hype song. Like, you just need like a little bit of ego before you're gonna go out on stage and sing off key for a bunch of 14-year-olds. But the second I was done with that show, I was down at that theater every night watching Ride the Cyclone, y'all. The box office staff knew who I was, all the ushers knew who I was, the fucking house manager knew who I was. Let me tell y'all a story really quick. Towards the end of the run, all the tickets were sold out, but they were doing this thing called like standby tickets, where if you showed up an hour before show, you can buy a ticket with the hopes that like somebody who already bought a ticket wasn't going to show up, and like about 5 minutes before the show, you could all get seated in the seats that were empty because the people didn't show up. And it was like a first come, first served basis. So I would go from school the second it ended at like 3:30 and run downtown to watch a show at 7, like every fucking night. And thank God I live in a city with good transportation and good food, because like the time between getting downtown and having to like wait for me to first of all get tickets, but then also wait to be seated for the show, I just like went to Cheesecake Factory like every night, ate dinner and did my homework. And those times of my life in which I was just sort of like out living my best life were some of my best memories from that year, honestly. Even on double show days, like I would get down there, watch the matinee at 3 o'clock, and sit in the lobby until the evening show at 7:30. Like, I was dedicated to making sure I got to watch every single Ride the Cyclone performance that I could, because one, the show is fucking amazing, but two, there is still no cast album. It comes out May 7th, it comes out tomorrow. So this was the only way that I could listen to any of these songs that were stuck in my head for like ever. I watched the show so many times that I can quote every single line from memory. And if you don't believe me, here's an audio clip that I recorded of myself quoting the show so that I would never have to forget like the script and the plot of the show, because I didn't know the next time I would see the show ever again. We're going back. End of the number. And then holy fudge. Oh my god, Ocean, you don't sing flat anymore. I don't sing flat. No, that's true. Sometimes you sing sharp. Guys, check it out. Everybody shut up. That's what she says. This is hardly the time to be discussing the lead singer of the choir's pitch. Lead singer of the choir. Pff, look what I can do. I watched this show so many times that while I was waiting in line with my standby ticket, the house manager was coming down the line of us to like give us the spiel about like how the standby tickets work, and he just took my ticket and said, "You know the drill already." Like, I was a regular at that theater. But you might be thinking, oh, well, Sam, since you've seen the show so many times, you must have met the cast a whole bunch and talked to them and became great friends. Nope, absolutely not. No, I refused to talk to or try to meet any of them until the final show, because one, social anxiety, but also two, as you can see from this video, I liked this show possibly an unhealthy amount, and I didn't know how they would react to me being in the audience every single night, front row, lip syncing to this show with no official cast soundtrack. Like, I'm just a little bit crazy and aggressive with my admiration of this show. And I didn't want to like be crossing a line with them. I wanted to keep some like strong fan artist separation and just like not cross any boundaries. So I did not talk to them until the very final closing show. But on the closing show, I thought I should at least try and say hello, because if I did make a big embarrassing fool of myself, there would be no consequences because this was the last show. But when I tell you that when I was in the lobby and Lillian Castillo walks around the corner and she sees me and she points to me and she says, "You," my heart fucking dropped. Because apparently they had all obviously noticed this one kid in the audience every fucking show and had been wanting to say hello and talk to me. But I had truly yeeted out of that theater the second that it let out. It turns out that they love how much I love the show, and you know, in hindsight, that makes a lot of sense, but you know, better safe than sorry. Editing Sam. A thing that I completely forgot about until I was in the middle of editing this is that when I would be, you know, in the front row watching the show every night as I do, there would be moments in which like the people on stage would like look at me. Like, they would look at me like directly in the eye, or they would point to me during a number. And first of all, again, this should have been a big sign that like it was fine to go and talk to them. But also this was just another very cool and great moment. If you watch This Song Is Awesome, which I believe is still on YouTube, there's a moment in which Misha sings, "Here come the hotties, here come the valet," and in that moment Ocean and Jane sort of circle downstage around him, and multiple times during that number Emily would like see me in the audience and like wave to me, and just, you know, hindsight again 2020, I should have just been like, "Hello." I think it was weirder now that I just was there every night and didn't say anything, but like, it's in the past, life goes on. And I got some selfies, I talked with the cast, they thought it was wild that I knew all of those songs, and I fully agreed. And we had a great time. And then on the car ride home, I violently sobbed at the realization I could never see the show again. It truly was my comfort show, is my comfort show, so it truly wrecked me that I could never see the show again, and it didn't help that all of the cast was like crying during the final number of the final show. So I started researching Ride the Cyclone, trying to find everything I could to fill this roller coaster sized hole in my heart. But thankfully, Lillian had said when I met her in the lobby that she was going to come back to my area to perform in the Heights. So I was able to look out for that. But I want to make it so clear that while I do love the show for what it is within itself, the show would not be the same without the main cast. Like Colby, Emily, Tiffany, Lillian, and Carl all understand their characters so well and put like such a sense of individuality and like a personal touch in all of the characters that truly make them something so special. Like, they truly understand the show and their characters unlike any other performers I've ever seen, and their version is like unmatched. Like, I've watched other productions of Ride the Cyclone. Granted, they were all like college Zoom productions, but they just could not hold a candle to their version, their true original version of Ride the Cyclone. The show itself is amazing, but that cast put something special into the show that I don't think ever can be replicated. I'm more than happy to be proven wrong, though. If somebody wants to put on another amazing version of Ride the Cyclone, let me know and I will be there. But I'm a fan of the cast as much as I am of the show. So when Lillian said that she was going to come back to just do a different show, I was like, oh, absolutely, I'm gonna be there. I try and follow and support all the new projects that they're working on because I know that they're all just so talented. Like, Lillian, I think, is the only person I've been able to see outside of Ride the Cyclone. I watched her in the Heights like 27 or 28 times. Because she's just so talented and that show is so good. Like, her vocals are amazing. I don't know if there's any clips of it on the internet, but if you could ever find her singing Carnival del Barrio from In the Heights, vocals, where is her Tony? She's just so amazing and talented. Wow, 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 wow. But anyways, I haven't been able to see any of them except for Lillian because none of them are local to my area except for Adam, who I was supposed to see in a play back in like April, but we are in a Panda Express, so But if any of the cast of Ride the Cyclone want to do a show here, I will be there. Like, I am committed to following their careers for the rest of my life. Like, Emily, she is coming out with an album soon, her own solo album. I pre-ordered it already. I'm very excited for it to come out. I think she just finished recording it. And she said that there were going to be some cut songs from Ride the Cyclone. Very exciting. But also, she's just a wonderful, like, vocalist, singer. She's so talented. She's a trained opera singer. Like, if you've seen the show, you know. Her number is like an operatic ballad, and it is amazing. It is so good. Like, the amount of, like, technical skill you need to have to perform that number is it's wild. It's wild. It's not just like a high ballad. It's opera. Opera, people. And I think Colby has done a few productions, but they've all been in Canada, so I've not been able to see them. But the day I can see him again, oh, I'm so excited because he is an amazing performer as well. But anyways, I go see Lillian in the Heights like 12 billion times. I say hi to her at an audience talkback and we chat a little bit, and I think this is when I found out about the Atlanta show that they were going to be doing the following May. And she mentioned that they were going to do a show in Atlanta. I do not think that she thought at all that I was going to fly across the country to see it, but never ever underestimate my love for Ride the Cyclone, the links I will go to see and support this show. But I find out about this show in December, and it's not going to be on stage until May. So I have about like 5 months to fully freak out, because at this time, the cast list had not been announced yet. So I was like, what if they were replacing people? Like, what if Colby isn't going to be part of the show anymore? Who's going to be able to do Jane Doe's number except for Emily Rome? Like, what is happening? Who is going to be cast as what? Is it going to be all the same cast? Is it going to be different people? I had no idea what was going on, and I was freaking out. Also, this was put on by Alliance Theater in Atlanta on their new Coca-Cola stage. And because it was the new stage, I was not able to see any of the sort of seat layouts and be able to fully know which seat is the best. Like, I could see like a map of it, but that doesn't give you the full perspective. Like, I couldn't tell, is front row too close to the stage? Should I actually sit a few rows back? And you might be thinking, Sam, this is not important. You're going across the country. Doesn't matter where you sit. It does. It very much does matter. So I not only emailed the theater themselves, but anybody on Instagram who had tagged a photo of themselves watching a production on that same stage. I DM'd them just to be like, hey, is front row too close to the stage? Nobody got back to me. That's fine. But I hope you could just understand that there were like a lot of things in the air at this point. I was just sort of freaking out to be like, oh my god, what is the show gonna be? What am I gonna walk myself into? Is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different in a good or a bad way? Who knew? But the cast list comes out, and it's all the same except for Ricky and Misha as per usual. Ricky is now being played by Scott Redman, and Misha is now being played by Chaz Duffy. So I did some internet sleuthing to see their past work. Scott Redman, I was very excited to see because, one, I'm pretty sure he is the first non-white Ricky ever. Like, we love seeing actors of color, always excited for that. But I also saw a clip of him singing because he posts like covers on his Instagram and his voice is just like amazing. So I was like, okay, nothing to worry about here. He's going to be great. Now, Chaz was playing Misha, who is arguably my favorite character. So I was like, okay, he's really gonna have to like prove himself to me. if he's going to, you know, be a part of my favorite show, if I'm going to see him as my favorite character, he's really got to put in the work. So he did an Instagram takeover of like the theater's Instagram account, and he was like, anybody have any questions for Misha? And I was like, okay, I'm not about to serve a softball at you. I'm really going to be asking you the hard-hitting questions to see, has he done the work? Like, this man needs to earn his stripes if I'm about to go out here and dedicate my whole life to following his career, you know? So I asked 2 questions. 1, how did Misha feel about that recent Ukrainian election? Because this was right after the Ukrainian election in 2019. And 2, who was he rooting for on the newest season of RuPaul's Drag Race? These were not easy questions at all, because first of all, you have to answer it in character, and you also need to know what the fuck am I talking about. But when I tell y'all, he knew the answers. He understood the assignment. He, first of all, said supportive of the recent Ukrainian election, and also he was rooting for Brooklyn Heights because she was a wonderful performer, total package, and she was also Canadian. And I was like, okay, I was sold. Chaz Duffy has my business until the end of time. Because his answer, absolute king shit. I don't know how often I'll be able to see him perform because he's a local to Atlanta and I am not, but anytime I can from this point forward, he has my patronage. He's also such a good performer. Like, Misha's not an easy role. He has like a ballad and then also a Ukrainian rap song. So to be able to do both of those things very well is very impressive. Same for Scott Redman. His voice is also amazing. Space Age Bachelor Man is like a really fun song, but it could also just be like a really vocally like beautiful song if you have like the range for it, and Scott Redman has the range. Like, I'm so excited to hear the recorded version on the cast album coming out May 7th because I just know it's going to be amazing. I also think he's like a native to New York, so I also don't know how often or ever I could see him perform, but again, I'm so excited. When I tell y'all I love these people and I follow their careers so closely, Scott Redman was on a podcast about beer and I listened to the full hour of that because he was on it, and I'm here to support them. That's the links I go to for this show. But also, Chaz's Ukrainian accent, I don't know if it's like fully authentic or not because I don't know any Ukrainian people, but to me, it sounds very good. At the very least, it's very, very consistent. Like, throughout the ballad and the rap, his accent is strong and clear and consistent. And that's really, it's so hard to do accent work. So the fact that he did it so well is just very impressive. Very amazing to watch. The Atlanta cast is the one that's going to be on the cast album coming out tomorrow, and I cannot think of a better cast to immortalize the show in this way. Like, they are all so amazingly talented, and the cast just keeps getting better. Like, the show was already S tier when I first saw it, but now it's like gone above and beyond that somehow. So I went to Atlanta, which was already fucking crazy. I still don't know how I convinced my mother to fly us across the country for this, but I did. And one of the first shows I went to, there was a talkback afterwards. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go see the talkback, see what they have to say about like the changes that happened to the show and how this show is different, how they feel about it, blah, 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 blah. So I'm sitting there just listening to them talk. Lillian is answering a question. She's looking out into the audience, and then she turns and she sees me and she does like a double take and she looks at me and she's like, Sam? And I'm like, hello. And she's like, oh my god, I did not expect you to be here. Like, I don't think anybody did. And the rest of the cast is like, oh my god, I thought that was you, but I didn't know for sure. And this was just like a fun little moment. I truly felt like a celebrity. I felt like a baddie. This moment did wonders for my ego. But I try to stay humble and not make like a big deal out of it, and they move on, and then this other girl, she comes and she asks a question. And Lillian looks at her and she's like, you've seen the show like 4 times or something, yeah? And she responds like, yeah, something like that. And then Lillian turns to me and she's like, how many times have you seen the show? And I get to turn to this audience of people and say, I've seen it 21 times. And y'all, if I had a mic, I would have dropped it. Like, truly not to brag, but I'm a brag. Y'all bitches wish you could be me. It was just such a great moment. And I got to chat with the cast afterwards and talked about how I felt about the changes to the show and what I thought about it. And we just got to talk and kiki, and it was a great fun time. And I got to meet Chaz and Scott, who are also just like great, wonderful sweethearts. And it was just a wonderful time being able to meet the cast, of course. I then watched the show a few more times and then headed home. And the cast has not done a production of Ride the Cyclone since Atlanta, because Atlanta was sort of the final workshopping version before they were able to start licensing the show out to other theater productions to see how it did with a different cast. And other theater productions have like put it on, and I guess it's like the whole point of like wanting to work on a show for so long is that other people also get to experience it. But like I said, nothing has been able to match the original cast version of Ride the Cyclone, because it's truly just something so again, magical, spectacular, and I think the only thing that might be comparable is this cast album that's coming out tomorrow, May 7th. But that is the history of Ride the Cyclone so far, or at least a good general summation of it. Sometime around February 2020, the company that's licensing Ride the Cyclone was selling like scripts, like printed versions of the script and the score, and I bought it, but because of the whole panoramic, it has yet to be shipped to me. But when I get it, oh, y'all, I'm so excited. I'm so excited to be able to just read the whole script again. And when I get the score, oh my god, sorry not sorry to anybody I ever auditioned for from here on out. I'm only auditioning with Ride the Cyclone songs, and if you have an issue with that, like maybe don't cast me in the show. Now, we tied up all the loose ends except for how we got from hating theater to becoming a theater student in like university. Like, finding my love for theater does not a BFA in acting student make. Well, fun fact, the head of the theater production for the school that I went to got to see Ride the Cyclone at, I believe, Push Festival in 2013, and he was also a big fan of the show, and I wrote about Ride the Cyclone and how much it changed my life and how much I loved it in my admissions letter, and that really stood out to him because he was like, oh, I know that show, and we got to talk a little bit about Ride the Cyclone in my admissions interview. So yes, Ride the Cyclone helped me get into university, and yes, I dropped out after one semester. We don't need to talk about that, that's not the point. I tried to get this guy to talk about Ride the Cyclone with me, but apparently he like forgot, because it was like 8 years ago, and like, sure, whatever, but also don't get my hopes up then. I don't know how anybody could forget the magical experience of watching Ride the Cyclone, but like... Anyways, this video, like Uranium City, Saskatchewan, is coming to an end. I hope I have thoroughly sold you all on this masterpiece of a musical, and you are going to go listen and buy the album, or at the very least stream it on like Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, whatever, when it comes out May 7th, tomorrow! I love this musical so much. It means so much to me and has such a special place in my heart. Like, it wouldn't if it wasn't like a truly show-stopping, Academy Award-winning musical. Like, if you ever get the chance to ride the Cyclone, highly recommend you doing it. The front axle may not break, but you'll get to see a cool bass-playing rat. And I think that's all you need, TBH. Okay, y'all, this is the preppiest outfit I have. I don't dress really preppy, but for this video, I shall make an exception. I have scripted this video. The script is 9 pages.